exactly what you do. So
Every year, roughly 48,000 civilians walk off a bus onto a U.S. Army post and immediately get screamed at by strangers. No warning, no ramp up. 1 second they are standing in a parking lot in whatever they wore on the plane. The next, a drill sergeant is 6 inches from their face, and the next 72 hours have already begun. 90% of the people who start that process finish it. The 10% who do not almost always lose it in those first 3 days before the real training even begins. What actually happens in those 72 hours? Why is it designed exactly the way it is? And could you survive it? By the end of this, you will understand every phase, the psychology behind what the Army is doing to you, and what it actually takes to make it through. If this is the first time you are hearing that the hardest part of basic training is not the physical, subscribe now. Daily Soldier goes exactly this deep on what service actually looks like from day one, before the bus even arrives. Basic combat training does not start when the drill sergeant boards the bus. It starts the moment you sign your enlistment contract. BCT is a 10-week program governed by U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command, TRADOC. Fort Jackson in South Carolina handles most non-combat specialties. Fort Sill in Oklahoma covers artillery. Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri handles engineers, chemical corps, and military police. Infantry recruits go through one-station unit training at Fort Benning. Basic training and advanced individual training combined into a single 22-week pipeline. The Army processes more than 48,000 new soldiers through Fort Jackson alone each year. Fort Leonard Wood's Reception Battalion processed 25,000 in a single year. These are not small operations. They are industrial-scale human transformation programs running 24 hours a day, every day of the year. What the Army knows, and most recruits do not, is that the physical fitness level you arrive with matters far less than your mental posture. Drill Sergeant Staff. Christopher Jackson, a combat veteran with 2 Afghanistan and 1 Iraq deployment, said it directly. The recruits who struggle most in the first 72 hours are not always the least fit. They are the ones who expected something different from what they got. The Army has been doing this for more than 100 years. It knows exactly how you feel when you step off that bus, and it uses that knowledge deliberately. Hour zero, the bus. You land at a designated airport, Charlotte Douglas for Fort Jackson, Lambert St. Louis for Fort Leonard Wood, Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta for Fort Benning. A non-commissioned officer meets you in the USO lounge. You wait. The Army does not move until there are enough recruits to fill the bus. The drive to post is quiet. Some people sleep. Some are on their phones for the last time before those phones disappear into a bag for weeks. Some are mentally rehearsing what they told themselves they would do when the drill sergeant gets in their face. Almost none of them are rehearsing the right thing. When the bus stops at the reception battalion, a drill sergeant steps on. Not your drill sergeant, a reception battalion drill sergeant whose specific job is to deliver the first shock. The instruction is immediate, loud, and non-negotiable. Get off the bus, fall into formation, do not talk, do not look around, do not stop moving. You have seconds. What follows is the shark attack. Drill sergeants converge from multiple directions, shouting simultaneous instructions at a volume and frequency the civilian brain has no framework for. There is no single voice to listen to. There are sick. The cognitive overload is the point. Nobody gets hurt, but Drill Sergeant Jackson confirmed that everyone's heart rate doubles, and the ones who freeze, even for a second, are already behind the ones who move. The shark attack is not cruelty, it is diagnostic. In 30 seconds of controlled chaos, drill sergeants see who moves when overwhelmed, who locks up, who looks to others for direction, and who, even rattled, keeps their feet moving and their eyes forward. They have seen it thousands of times. They know what they are looking for before they board the bus. Reception Battalion, where time becomes your enemy. Reception is not basic training. It is the administrative and medical processing that must happen before basic training can legally begin. Physical examinations, blood draws, dental checks, immunizations, sometimes several in one arm, uniform issue, ID tags. The shakedown where every bag is emptied and anything prohibited, food, tobacco, non-prescription medication, anything civilian, is confiscated on the spot. Direct deposit set up. Emergency contact documentation. Stenciling your name onto your gear. There are 32 processing stations according to U.S. Army documentation from Fort Leonard Wood. Processing that would take 8 to 10 hours at maximum efficiency takes 3 to 5 days the Army way. Not because the Army is slow, but because moving 200 to 400 new soldiers through medical, pay, supply, and administrative systems simultaneously is genuinely complex. Someone always has the wrong document. Someone always needs extra medical attention. You are never standing still. The pace is relentless even when processing is slow. You are always in a line, transitioning between stations at a fast walk or standing at parade rest, feet shoulder-width apart, hands clasped behind the back, eyes front, and silence for however long it takes. The first phone call home happens here. Approximately 2 minutes. You give your family the mailing address. You tell them you arrived safely. You hang up. That is the phone for the foreseeable future. The haircut happens here too. For male recruits, buzz cut, 45 to 60 seconds. This matters more psychologically than most recruits expect. The haircut is not just regulation. It is the most visible signal that the identity you brought with you is no longer the operating identity. Everyone in the room looks the same. The visual uniformity begins the moment the clippers come off. For the 10% who do not finish, the statistics point to this exact window. Fitness assessment failures go to a fitness training company before BCT begins. Undisclosed medical conditions surfacing at reception can result in medical separation before week 1 ends, and some simply walk away. The Army calls it entry-level separation. It happens here in the first 72 hours before the real training starts. Before we go further, if this is landing differently than you expected, hit the like button right now. 2 seconds, and it tells the algorithm to show this to more people who deserve the real picture. Back to the story. The comparison that changes everything. Here is what actually separates the people who finish from the people who do not, and it is almost never what either group expected. Most recruits prepare physically. They run. They research the Army Combat Fitness Test, the ACFT, 6 events, minimum score, 360 points, 3-rep max deadlift, standing power throw, hand release push-ups, sprint drag carry plank, 2-mile run. Physical preparation matters. No one is suggesting otherwise. But the drill sergeants see something different in those first 72 hours. Staff Sergeant Kenneth Gibson at Fort Leonard Wood put it plainly, new arrivals are doing some soul-searching. Reality starts to smack them in the face that they are no longer home. The recruits who struggle are not struggling because they cannot run a 2-mile. They are struggling because the social architecture they have lived in their entire lives, where they have autonomy, status, and control over their own time, has been completely removed. In its place, a stranger with total authority over every minute of their existence. That is the adjustment, not the physical one, the identity one. The recruits who manage it fastest made one psychological decision before the bus, that they were going to follow every instruction at full speed without internal resistance, not because they surrendered, because they understood that resistance costs more energy than compliance, and that energy is finite. The 90% completion rate is not an accident. Basic training is not designed to eliminate most people, it is designed to transform them. The 10% who do not make it almost always decided in those first 72 hours that the system was something to fight. That is the comparison that changes everything. Not fit versus unfit, committed versus uncommitted. And the first 72 hours is where that distinction becomes visible. What mainstream coverage never shows. The shark attack gets the footage. The buzz cut gets the photographs. What almost never gets shown is the deliberate engineering behind every element of those 72 hours and why it works. Sleep deprivation in the first 72 hours is real. Recruits sleep in short windows between processing stations, adjust to a noise environment unlike anything civilian, and move at all hours. This is not designed to torture. It is designed to create a baseline stress state that reveals how a person behaves when tired and overwhelmed simultaneously. Because that is exactly the state soldiers operate in during combat. The Army needs to see who functions and who breaks down before investing 10 weeks in them. Uniform issue is equally deliberate. The moment every recruit wears the same thing, Army combat uniform, identical boots, identical headgear, civilian hierarchies disappear. Wealth, status, regional identity, personal style, all invisible. The Army is not just issuing clothing. It is dissolving pre-existing social structures so that the only structure that matters is the one the Army builds. The 2-minute phone call is not a punishment. The Army knows recruits who maintain heavy civilian contact in the first week struggle more with the identity transition. The letter system that replaces the phone is slower, more deliberate, and consistent with the pace of the new environment. The first 100 yards, the team exercise when recruits arrive at their BCT company, is the Army's deliberate introduction of the thing that makes all of it survivable, the person next to you. Unit cohesion must be planted immediately. The Army knows it. It is engineered in from the first moment at the unit, not developed organically over time. What those 72 hours actually build. The popular image of basic training as a breaking down process misses what is actually happening. The Army is not trying to break recruits. It is replacing a civilian operating system with a military one. The civilian system runs on individual decision-making, personal time management, and social navigation. The military system runs on immediate response to instruction, trust in the person next to you, and subordination of individual preference to mission requirement. That replacement cannot happen gradually. It has to happen fast, which is why the first 72 hours are deliberately compressed, deliberately loud, and deliberately total in removing everything familiar. By the time a recruit has been through the shark attack, the shakedown, the haircut, 32 processing stations, the first exhausted night in barracks, and the first formation before sunrise, they are no longer running on civilian defaults. The military architecture is being installed in place of the one that was dismantled. The drill sergeants running this are not the angry strangers they appear to be in the first minute. They are selected from the best NCOs in the Army, complete a drill sergeant course and assessment before setting foot on the trail, and work 18-hour days at the start of every cycle. The first 72-hour room program at Fort Jackson's 1st Battalion. 13th Infantry Regiment exists specifically to support them, a space to take breaks and eat home-cooked meals with their families during the most demanding stretch of their professional cycle. The Army calls this its People First Plan. The same institution running recruits through the hardest 72 hours of their lives is taking care of the people delivering that experience. That is not a contradiction. It is institutional maturity. Answering the question, could you survive the first 72 hours of U.S. Army basic training? Physically, probably yes. The first 72 hours are not primarily a physical test. Processing stations are exhausting but not athletic. What they require is following instructions under stress, moving at someone else's pace, and maintaining composure in an environment designed to make composure difficult. Mentally, it depends on one decision, whether you arrive having already accepted that the next 10 weeks will look like nothing you have experienced and that fighting the system costs more than moving through it. The 90% who finish are not abstractly tougher than the 10% who do not. They made that decision before the bus and held to it when the first 72 hours made it feel wrong. The Army builds approximately 48,000 new soldiers every year at Fort Jackson alone. Everyone walked off a bus as a civilian and walked out of graduation as a soldier, not because they were already soldiers, because the system, designed over more than a century of combat-proven refinement, is built to make them one. The first 72 hours is where that process begins, and it begins the way it does because the Army knows exactly what it is doing. Closing somewhere right now, a bus is pulling into Fort Jackson. The doors are opening. A drill sergeant is stepping on. The person in the back row, who 3 hours ago was in an airport texting home, is about to have the most disorienting 72 hours of their life. They volunteered for it, every single one of them. They signed a contract, passed a physical, showed up at a processing station, and got on that bus by choice. That decision to raise your hand and say, "Yes, I will go," is what makes everything that follows possible. Not easy. Possible, The U.S. Army has been turning civilians into soldiers for more than 100 years. Through world wars, Korea, Vietnam, the deserts of Iraq, and the mountains of Afghanistan. The system that puts a drill sergeant on that bus is the same system that produced the soldiers who held those lines, ran those patrols, and came home changed in ways that no briefing or headline can capture. What happens in those first 72 hours is not a hazing ritual. It is the beginning of something that 90% of the people who start it carry with them for the rest of their lives. A standard, a posture, a way of moving through difficulty that basic training builds and nothing else quite replicates. If Daily Soldier is giving you the real picture of what service looks like from day one, subscribe. Every phase of military life, every decision that keeps the people who serve gets this treatment here. And from everything you just learned, which part of those first 72 hours do you think hits people hardest? The physical exhaustion, the loss of privacy, or the total removal of everything familiar?